Well, we're honored to have Sarah Wall today on the show. Thanks for joining us, Sarah, today.
Welcome.
Great. So you're back from Florida. You spend your winters in Florida and you came back to Virginia. Am I correct on that?
Yes,
Nice to be back.
it is. Virginia is luscious and green, and we live in the mountains in the southwest part of Virginia in a mid-sized town, and I can see the Blue Ridge Parkway from my back porch.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow, beautiful.
That sounds awesome.
It is.
And you've got I think you were telling me earlier that you have a cousins fest or something coming up. What is a cousin
Yes, I
fest?
have lots of nieces and nephews, and they have lots of little tiny children now. So some of my nieces wanted to get together when one of them is in Virginia visiting from Florida with her little children. And so the other two said, well, we'll all come to Roanoke. So tomorrow we're going to have a room full of 5-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old,
Oh,
18
goodness.
months old, just and a bunch of aunts and moms. So fun.
Wow.
That
That's so
just
much
sounds
fun.
that sounds like craziness to me. But listen, we're going to back up a little bit. It started, your story kind of starts from a seamless, normal day back in November, and it quickly turned into, chaos, a medical crisis. You were fighting for your life, that sort of thing. So take us back to the beginning. Take us back to November 2019, if you can remember what
Okay.
happened there.
I was a perfectly normal athletic person. I have been a competitive swimmer. I have been a cross-country runner. I have been a marathoner. I have been a jazzercise addict. I have been a very physically active person. My professional career was as a health educator. So I also had a lot of knowledge about how to stay well and keep myself healthy. I had no health issues other than arthritis in my knees, no comorbidities, no diabetes. And I went to Richmond, Virginia on a business trip in November of 2019. And while I was in Richmond, I just had one of those moments where I didn't feel right. And I try to explain this to people that when you are someone who's very acutely aware of your health status, as most athletic people are, I know when something's off. I
Yeah,
might not be able to say exactly what's wrong with me, but I knew something was off
yeah,
on Thursday night, November the 7th. Nevertheless, I got up the next day. I met a friend for breakfast. I drove myself 3 hours home from Richmond, Virginia, back to Roanoke, which is kind of a miracle in itself after what unfolds shortly thereafter. Um, I just came straight in the house and got in bed. I didn't even get my suitcases out of the car, which my husband said was so weird. I just didn't feel right. I couldn't
right.
tell you what was wrong with me. I didn't feel right.
You know your
Had,
body, so like,
yep, I do. I had a very restless night, just didn't sleep well. I got up in the morning and my normal habits would be to go straight to my jazzercise class at the gym nearby. Didn't do that. And my first symptoms were I kept saying my feet hurt. My feet hurt. Um, and I couldn't explain why my feet hurt. At the time, I was completely ignorant about sepsis, completely ignorant.
yeah,
But my feet were hurting. That I guess they kind of had symptoms like somebody might have if they were suffering from frostbite, but it was November, no frostbite in the picture.
mhm,
So that was my first symptom. And then as this is Saturday morning now, November 9th, and as the morning progressed, my feet are still bothering me. And I began to be, I think, a little less coherent.
right.
And I wasn't looking in a mirror, but my husband, of course, was very worried about me and hovering around and getting me ginger ale and, what can I do? And he was getting kind of anxious about my state. And he went across the street to a woman who's a nurse practitioner and asked her to come over.
Well, good.
and just take a look at me. And she did. And she wasn't in the house 10 minutes when she noticed petechia, which is small, tiny blood vessels in your face
Oh,
that might clot and have little red bumps. And so, because she was a nurse, she knew that that was a sign of clotting. So she hands the phone to my husband and says, call the ambulance. She's clotting. Well, he was just a nervous wreck, but nevertheless, the ambulance comes, and by the time the ambulance got here, I'd say it was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not real coherent anymore. I vaguely remember being carried out of the house in the ambulance. But the ambulance, I get loaded in the ambulance, and the ambulance doesn't go anywhere right away. And my husband, he's kind of in shock. So he's looking out the window. He's not out there with the ambulance. And finally he comes out and he's like, why aren't you going anywhere? And they said, well, we're trying to stabilize her. Her blood pressure has plummeted.
wow.
And if you know anything about sepsis, that is often the first measurable indicator of sepsis is a very low blood pressure.
Yeah,
And mine was like 60 over 40, so dangerously low.
yeah,
Um, I think probably at that point, I'm not really conscious very much anymore. I remember nothing after that. But I was rushed to the hospital, rushed to the ER. Um, um, that I think they didn't quite know what to do with me. I do not know because I wasn't hearing any of the conversation that took place in the ER. But I remember that I said to my husband, but what are they going to do about my feet? Because my persistent symptom is that my feet are hurting.
yeah,
After that, I know nothing. I have no memory of anything. But what I do know is that in a very short period of time, I was taken from the ER to the ICU. They pretty much had concluded that I probably was in septic shock
yeah,
and began doing whatever they do for that.
yeah,
And I, of course, have no memory of those early days in the ICU, but I asked my husband this morning, and my condition deteriorated rapidly. He said shortly after midnight, I was put on a ventilator to
yeah.
help me breathe.
Hey,
At
Sarah,
some point,
let me kind of back up a little bit. You said that you had symptoms of sepsis, and something you said that was really interesting is your blood pressure drops really low, and you were feeling pain in like your extremities, and you have these
no,
dots.
that wouldn't have anything to do with the sepsis,
Oh,
but a low blood pressure and some confusion, mental confusion, are
okay.
symptoms of sepsis.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Okay.
feelings in my feet, now I know that I was having clotting and bleeding in my feet. So no wonder they felt like frostbite
Yeah.
because the circulation was being affected. But I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know that
Yeah.
at the time.
Well, I've heard
So,
I've heard things about sepsis where the blood tries to go to your heart and when you have sepsis, and that's why you don't feel anything in your extremities because a lot of the blood is in your heart trying to fix itself. And you don't, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I've heard this from several people that this happens, and that's why your extremities start to get pain and you start to lose your extremities. Have you heard that?
well, what I know to be true for a fact is that sepsis is a very dangerous and usually fatal condition.
Yeah,
So it's never good news if someone tells you that you have sepsis. But pretty much standard treatment for sepsis or someone they suspect is suffering from sepsis is they give you some medications. They call them pressors. And those medications really focus on making sure you have adequate blood supply to your brain, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, the vital organs.
right,
And what
right.
those pressors do is they shunt blood away from your extremities. And so it,
Oh,
it's sort of, you could make, I think, a case that it's the pressors that result in amputations
uh,
when you have a sepsis victim because you want to keep the person alive. And so you are using medicinal methods to keep the blood flowing normally in the brain, in the lungs, in the heart, the kidneys, the
Because
critical
if you
organs.
don't, all the organs start to shut down and things.
Exactly. And so I think that's just a protocol when you have a sepsis patient. And it's those medications that they give you that save your life that can result in amputation as the
Got
blood
it.
flow is compromised to your extremities.
Well, you know what?
This,
That's a fantastic way to describe it.
It is.
Really,
I've never
really,
heard anyone describe it like that,
really
and
good.
it's so easy to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know who described it like that to me? The hero of my story, who was a reconstructive plastic surgeon at Georgetown Wound Care Center at Georgetown University Hospital. He explained that to me, and he said, Essentially, it's the pressors that make you lose your limbs,
Yeah.
but we save your life, but the cost is your limbs." And I was like, "Makes sense to me."
You only have one choice at that point, right? Well, listen,
Well,
48 hours in the hospital, it turned really critical for you. Your condition deteriorated really quick, you said. What do you remember at that time? And I think you were in a coma at that point, right? And
yes.
so
So
do you share
when
anything from like what your family observed while you were in ICU and things?
Yes, I can. So my husband was there with me most of Saturday. I get ventilated, I get taken to ICU. Sometime probably in the next 12 hours, I'm on dialysis. That didn't happen immediately, but pretty soon after. So I am very sick girl at this time. And I think no one really expects me to survive this. Um, Over the course of probably the first 24 hours, maybe the first 36 hours, sepsis becomes another rare and fatal condition called DIC.
Yes.
So that was diagnosed as that, okay, she did have sepsis, but now she definitely has DIC, which stands for disseminated intravascular coagulation.
Mm,
It's almost always fatal. Very few people survive DIC. It is a bleeding and clotting disorder where your platelet behavior is totally messed up, and you can be bleeding and clotting at the same time.
wow.
And the reason DIC is so fatal is, if you know anything about medicine, you can give people medicine if they're bleeding and it will slow and cause their blood to clot and stop profuse bleeding. If you have people that are clotting, you can give other meds to thin the blood and reduce the clots. But if you have someone who's doing
Can't do both.
both,
Yeah.
there's really nothing that can be done for them.
Hmm.
Wow.
So during those first critical 3 or 4 days, one physician said to my husband, "Your wife is dying." And another hematologist was called in to give her opinion on what could be done next. I think there must have been quite a bit of confusion about how to handle my case because it was so severe. And this one physician said, "Let's try some heparin." Well, heparin, I think, is a blood thinner,
It is. Yeah.
because she seemed more concerned about the clotting than she was about the bleeding. And so I think that it was that decision that saved my life.
Mm.
I met this person later, never had a conversation with her about that decision, but I believe that it was that decision at that moment that possibly gave me the chance to survive.
Who was that person? Like, what were they?
She was a hematologist.
Hematologist. Isn't
And,
that interesting?
because I was so severely ill, I think the team of doctors in the ICU were quite confused about what to do for me. And so they were kind of reaching out for calls from anybody else.
Well,
Hematology would make sense because clearly I had a blood disorder. I mean,
yeah.
it was obvious that I was clotting. So to consult a hematologist seemed like a logical thing to do. And I'm grateful they did. Because
So Sarah,
yeah.
do you know if you got the blood clotting uh, because you had sepsis and then it became DIC, or because you had a
Well, I
blood
had
clotting disorder that
DIC.
led? Okay.
sepsis first, and then it
Sepsis
tips
first.
over. Sepsis first, then it tips over into
So
DIC.
no
My
signs of
whole
anything vascular
blooding,
prior to sepsis.
no, no,
Nothing.
nothing,
Wow.
nothing,
Yeah.
You know
no.
what I found interesting, what you said there is like you had a nurse practitioner across the street show up in your life and right at the right time. And then you have the hematologist, is that what you said?
Hematologist, yeah.
Hematologist show up at the right time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that amazing how that happens sometimes?
Oh, the
Yeah.
first of many angels in my
Yes.
story.
I was
I'll
just
bet.
thinking of that same word because the nurse that was across the street was the first angel that noticed for
Yeah,
you, right? It's incredible.
yeah.
Sarah,
Yes.
you know, do you remember the moment when you first gained consciousness and what did you find out at that moment and how did you feel?
I was not conscious until the day that they took me off the ventilator. So I think I was on the ventilator about 10 or 11 days.
Hmm.
And I don't know how many days I was on dialysis, but I was responding and improving. And I guess my vital signs were strong enough that they felt that they could take me off the ventilator. If you've ever been ventilated, you're always in a medically induced coma when you're on a ventilator to keep you from pulling it out of your,
Yeah.
mouth,
Yeah.
because it's not comfortable and it's not pleasant. So you're knocked out so that you won't
Hmm.
mess with it.
Yeah.
So when I was taken off the ventilator and brought out of that medically induced coma, and I couldn't say what day that was, but at that time, the damage had been done. And so when I opened my eyes, the tips of my fingertips were all black on
Mhm.
both hands because I have pretty severe amputations on this left hand. And I'm not sure if I saw my feet that first day. They would have
Hmm.
been under the covers, under the blanket. But
Sure.
when I did, I remember thinking to myself, my life is over.
Yeah.
These feet are not going to recover. They're as black as your shirt, Kevin.
Yeah.
Just nothing, no healthy tissue left, pretty much to right around the ankles.
Yeah.
And to say I was in shock is an understatement. I mean, I no one had told me or my husband that that might be a possibility of
Right.
saving my life,
Right.
that I might lose limbs.
Yeah.
Completely caught off guard and just paralyzed with shock. Just
Yeah.
it wasn't just like one finger, it was every finger,
And your feet.
except my ring finger. This is not my third finger. I actually
Right.
lost my first finger. So this is not the finger that you would use to, give somebody. It's actually my ring finger. And
Oh,
I
nice.
had on a
Yeah.
stack of my wedding ring, my engagement ring, some other bands that I had on. And I think that having those rings on somehow saved this finger
Maybe, maybe.
because,
Incredible.
Yeah.
yeah, just another amazing lucky thing. But those
Yeah.
rings were still on my finger and they wouldn't come off. But I think that because I had those five rings on, they may have prevented clots from getting into this finger. I don't know.
It's
Anyway,
wow.
Yeah.
waking up and becoming conscious was not pleasant, and I struggled to even speak. I was so shocked at what I was seeing and what my brain was leaping ahead to tell me was going to come next, and that I was going to lose those feet and lose all those fingers. It was pretty obvious to my non-medical eyes that there was going to be no saving those feet. They were.
And when you hear that, when you're going to lose a limb, the first things you start to think of is how do I move forward? What's life gonna look like without fingers? What's life gonna look like without being able to balance myself with my feet? All these things run through your head really, really quickly. And I think that's probably what you're describing, right?
Well, I think that those of us that have lost limbs, I think that we all kind of have this thought, not a positive thought. It's like, how can I live like this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's gruesome to say that, but I think it's a reality is how can I live like this? And, rationally, you come around to realizing that, of course, you can live without limbs, but your first initial thoughts is, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. So,
There must have been a bit of relief though coming out of ICU into the progressive care unit. It's kind of a milestone. Like, hey, I've beat this thing a little bit, and my life isn't being threatened anymore.
well, this is what other people are telling me. I'm still in just quite shocked
Yeah,
Yeah.
at where I am and what's coming next. But everyone else is just, exuberant that I have survived. And
right.
now I'm stable and there's no trace of clotting anymore or bleeding. And so it appears that my life has been saved at extremely high cost
Mhm.
of, parts of four limbs. So, those days, now I'm more conscious and I began to do what I always do, and that's to ask questions, lots of
Yeah,
questions. Okay, what's happening next? Who's the best? Who's going to come in here and explain what's going on? What's going to happen next? And
yeah.
so the more alert that I became, the more annoying I became because
I know exactly what
I
you're
wanted
talking about.
information. I
Yeah, for
wanted
sure.
understanding. I wanted to know what was coming next for me
Yeah.
and what was that going to look like.
Why is
And
that so hard for the doctors and nurses to understand, right? Like the medical field doesn't really explain what's going to happen next. They just kind of assume that you know these things and you don't know them, right?
I think that anyone who's told that you're going to lose a limb or part of a limb, there should be a psych consult at that point,
Absolutely.
and not 6 and 12 months later. Just delivering that news to a patient. I think you need a social worker or a
Yeah,
psychologist or someone who's available to process that because that is a life-altering statement to give to
absolutely.
the patient. And throughout my whole journey, I have felt that there is a gap in providing mental health care for anyone who's facing amputations.
Yeah.
The hospitals they're just not covering that. They're taking off body parts and sewing you back up and getting you home and getting you walking again, but there's not much conversation about the headspace.
We recognize that gap as well, Yasmin and I. We actually at the hospital that we had our amputations and we had our recovery here in Toronto. We go down now and deliver user groups, like not user groups, support groups once a month with the people that are in the hospital, and we try to
I'd
coach.
love to do that.
Yeah,
I
and
feel like my story, I have a lot of things I could share, but no, no such thing. In my town, there's not even a support group at all for
right.
amputees. Now, in a town 1 hour west of me, there is a support group, and a town 1 hour east of me, there's a support group, but there is nothing in Roanoke, which is a bigger town, bigger city than either of those two. It's
Oh,
not the size of Toronto by any means, but we're a
you,
larger city with a large medical system, and we have nothing,
you might
nothing.
have to start one yourself.
I know
Yeah.
It's really rewarding. It's fun. Yeah,
it's a missing gap. I wish we could find some team of people that would be willing to start that. It's way too big an ambition for me to do that by myself.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Yeah. We do it once a month, Yasmin, right? And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's here again already. It's
it
like,
is. I'm actually looking forward to the next one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's different people because it could probably going to be different people because a bunch of them were going to be discharged
Mm.
um, at the time. But Sarah, I'm interested to find out at what
Well, that's
point
great.
do
I
you
would love to do
remember?
that.
Yeah, you should join our
yeah,
bi-weekly
absolutely.
limb loss connection, and we can you can meet some other people. But
Oh,
right
that'd be
now,
cool.
I'm interested to find out at what point do you remember was the turning point for you that you thought, you know what, you can do this and start moving forward? Do you remember that point? No?
No, that point did not happen in the hospital. I
Mm-hmm.
was devastated, to put it
Yeah.
mildly. I mean, think of my former life. I've been athletic my whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I've used my body my whole life to be active. And the
Yeah.
thought of losing my feet just was almost unbearable to
Yeah.
me. Unbearable.
But when you left the hospital, how long did it take you, and when did you realize, okay, I'm gonna move forward and I can do this?
Well, I left the hospital in January of 20,
Okay.
and I went to a rehab section of the hospital because my surgeries, my particularly surgeries to remove my feet, those wounds were not doing well. They were not healing well at all. So
Mhm.
I was not discharged from the hospital to go home. I went to a rehab facility associated with the hospital and spent probably another 20 days there. In the States, your insurance companies will sometimes limit how much time you can spend in a rehab
Oh, is that right?
condition. And so I had that same limit on my insurance. So I could only stay there about 21 days.
Mm.
And in an ideal case, my wounds would have recovered and I would have been fitted for prosthetics before I was discharged from rehab. That did not happen at all for me. My lower limbs, they were just a bloody mess and they were not healing well.
Wow.
And so there was no talk of any prosthetic fitting. And I went home from the rehab after I'd had to have someone renovate the downstairs section of my house so that I could come home in a wheelchair. Another angel appeared in my life, and that somebody that I knew gave me a very fancy electric wheelchair, just
Ah.
gave it to me. It had been purchased for this woman's father, and he had passed before he'd ever really used it. And she shared my story with her mother, and her mother said, well, I want her to have dad's wheelchair.
Hmm.
And my brother went down into North Carolina with a truck in the middle of the winter to get it and brought it back to me. And it was brand new, and it turned out to be exactly the right fit for me. So that was a
Yeah.
gift,
Well,
just a
Another
gift.
angel.
yeah.
You're filled with angels around you, Sarah.
Pardon me?
You're
Pardon me?
filled with angels around you.
A lot of angels, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, I get out of rehab in January of 20. I go home to my house, which has been renovated to live in the wheelchair. I have a hospital bed for a while in the TV room because I'm not good yet with transferring, or I'm not being very proactive. I'm still very much a shell-shocked, disappointed patient because I've lost my feet, I've lost my fingers, but they haven't healed. So I can't move on to anything. And so 2020 turned out to be just actually the longest year of my life because I came home in January. It's COVID, so nobody can come
Oh,
visit.
that's
You know,
right.
we're all locked down in COVID.
Wow.
My wounds do not get any better, do not get any better. I go back to my surgeon. He was not an angel, even though his surgery apparently was adequate, but he has no idea how to help these limbs heal. He refers me to a wound care doctor. So I get trucked over to the wound care doctor and try a number of different things there. S- Still don't heal. My surgical incisions do not fully heal until June of 2020,
Mhm.
6 months after my surgeries.
Wow.
So at that point, I finally can go and get fitted for prosthetics. So now I'm sort of excited because I have been stuck in a wheelchair for 6 months. It's
Mhm.
been 7 months I've been in the hospital
Yeah.
system, basically. So I
Mhm.
get fitted for prosthetics in June of 2020 with a local company that specializes in prosthetics. And I bring them home and I'm all excited. I've got my walker. There's a picture of me standing outside on my driveway, like I'm on my feet, I'm up. I was pretty excited about that. But it turns out that that fragile skin that had just finally healed on the bottom of my legs did not have the strength to support prosthetic use. And
Right.
so immediately after, we're talking 5 minutes in my prosthetics, I had water blisters, the size of a small balloon,
Yeah.
huge, huge blisters. And of course, then they would then burst, and you have raw skin, and you can't do any prosthetic wear with raw skin. And so that went on. Blisters, rest, try again, blisters, rest, try again. That went on from June until December.
Yeah.
So in December of 2020, I go back to my prosthetist and I say, I want my rehab doctor to come to this appointment too. So they arranged for my rehab doctor to actually be at the prosthetic office with me. And I say to my rehab doctor, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to walk in these. I think that I possibly may need to have more surgery because I don't think the skin is tough enough to do the job. And
Right.
now I'm not a doctor. This is just my patient experience. And my rehab doctor was not very proactive at that point in time. And bless her little heart, she refers me to the hand surgeon. And I'm like, I don't really think a hand surgeon is what I need now. I think
Right.
I need a reconstructive plastic surgeon. So we left the doctor's office that day in early December of 2020 at a really low point. And I think this is where I really kind of said to myself, you're going to have to solve this problem by yourself. I mean, you've been in the hands of a prosthetist for 6 months. You've been under the care of a rehab doctor for a year.
Yeah.
You made zero progress.
Yeah.
So I came home and I said to my husband, we're going to call Walter Reed Army Hospital because I know that Walter Reed sees a lot of service people and they have amputations done there and they get the best of care and they get whatever it is you need once you're really to that point. But I'm not there yet. But I'm going to call them and I want to speak to somebody and ask them if they can refer me to a skilled reconstructive plastic surgeon who can do revision surgery because now I'm completely convinced that I'm never going to walk in prosthetics until I have revision surgery and take this fragile skin off the bottom of my legs and hope that I have some other tissue that could fill in for it. So we do that and we get a hold of someone in the physical therapy department at Walter Reed who right off the bat says, oh, yes, I know two excellent reconstructive plastic surgeons. One is at Georgetown University Hospital in DC. One is at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. And so they give us the name of both of these physicians. We contact the Georgetown office because that's slightly closer to where we live. And this was my best angel to be connected with Dr. Christopher Addinger, who is a reconstructive plastic surgeon at Georgetown. We go up to see Dr. Addinger in early January of 21. He takes one look at the bottom of my legs. He says, this will never support prosthetic wear. Your skin is too damaged, it's too thin, it's too fragile. And he immediately puts his hands on my stumps and starts massaging the skin around it. And he says, but you've got a lot of muscle, Q, and you've got a lot of skin. And he said, we can just cut this off and pull this tighter together and sew it up and let it heal. And then I think you'll be fine. And I'm like, that's all it takes. I've wasted a year of my life, and that's all that's needed to be done
So it
here.
was just the
So I'm happy
skin.
but sad because now I have to have surgery again. Yep. And this is where my story really starts to get interesting because I'm ecstatic. I love this doctor. I'm so encouraged that he can see right off the bat that there's a solution here, need to have this surgery. And he also asks me a question, which I'm not sure is being asked of many people that have amputations and that suffer from neuropathy. He
Mhm.
says, are you having any neuropathy? And I said, oh gosh, yes, in my left leg particularly. I was like, it's like lightning bolts. And he goes, yeah, it's lightning bolts. And he's like, well, I happen to have a neurologist on my staff. And what we can do for that left leg is we can take that cut nerve and just bury it back into a muscle in your
Yeah.
upper leg. and that will stop the neuropathy. Do you want to do that at the same time? And I'm like, oh, heck yes. And
That's
so when I go back for surgery, I'm actually having two physicians working on me. The neurologist is burying that nerve in my upper left leg, and Dr. Adinger is getting rid of the bad skin and pulling together the healthier tissue, and creating two new incisions at the bottom of my legs.
actually just started that process, like that procedure here in Canada, where they bury that nerve and they say that it does work. But you do
Oh
have
my gosh, I never had another incidence of neuropathy.
I've
Not
heard
one.
you
Wow.
actually got to ask for it, and people don't know that they have to ask for it. Otherwise,
People don't know they have
do it.
to ask for it. They don't know what it's called. It's TNR, targeted nerve reinnervation.
Yeah. So I
TNR.
Simple.
I suffer from neuropathy myself. It's painful. It's annoying. It never goes away, and you just kind of
Mm-mm.
have to learn to
And
live
you
with
don't want to be
it.
taking gabapentin for the rest of
Right.
your life because it really doesn't do much for it. So,
Right.
Kevin, get your feet on
So
and run to the next neurologist
so
and
they did it
sign
for
up.
me. They did it for me. When I'm bilateral, I lost both legs, and when they
Mhm.
did it, they did that procedure, and I don't have neuropathy anymore.
Me
Yeah.
either. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
think everyone who's gobbling up gabapentin and what's that other medicine for neuropathy? It's a common new drug. They should just have the surgery because it's an end game done.
Yeah.
Stopped it for me. So I'm pretty excited about all this potential. Yes, I'm not excited about having surgery again, but I believe this doctor has given me the answers I'm looking for. So then we come back home, and at the time I'm 63 years old. Obviously, I'm not working anymore because I'm completely disabled. But I have insurance through Obamacare, and it's Anthem policy in Virginia. So I get in touch with my insurance, and I'm thinking, well, Adinger, he's in the District of Columbia. This is probably going to be fine. And my insurance says no. They will not pay for me to have this surgery with Dr. Adinger. They want me to go running off to some other person in their network. And this is funny. So I'm mad as a hornet about this. But I say, okay, who's this person? So they send me to a hand specialist at
Right.
UVA.
Right.
And I'm explaining to this guy who's looking at my legs and talking about how he, might be able to do this surgery, might be able to do this surgery. And I said, he says, have you consulted with anyone else? And I said, yes, I have. And he said, who have you seen? I said, I've seen a guy I really like. His name is Dr. Christopher Adinger. He's a reconstructive plastic surgeon with Georgetown Hospital. And you know what this physician says to me? Oh, he's the guy.
So he knew too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
I'm like, right, he's the guy,
why is
not
the
you.
insurance questioning that, right? Like,
Oh my God. So anyway, I saw Adinger in January. I battled with my insurance for 8 months. I filed a claim with the State Corporation Commission in Virginia, which you can do if you have a gripe with your insurance company. It went nowhere. I talked to people who said they were way high up and they had connections at Anthem. And I was like, I am not asking for the moon. I'm just asking for this surgery to be covered.
yeah.
No, no, no,
Wow.
no. And so my last and final no came from Anthem in August. And I just called Dr. Adinger's office in tears and just like my insurance won't cover it. They won't cover it. And he's like, well, how old are you now? And of course, now it's 21. I said, I'm 64. And he said, when are you going to be 65? I said, in November. And he said, well, let's just do it in November. And I was like, okay, well, let's get me on the schedule. What day do you have available? Well, how about we do it on November 12th? I was like, fine, that's my 65th birthday.
That's your
I'll have
birthday.
surgery on my, so
Yeah.
I did. I
Well, that was
did.
the best birthday gift, I'm sure,
It
right?
was. It was.
That's incredible.
But that whole year of 21 was such a challenge for me.
Mm.
I think if I had not been, one, an advocate for myself, two, someone who was willing to search for answers and information, I would have just spent the rest of my life in a wheelchair.
I
I
Yeah.
would
can't
never.
even imagine if you ended up seeing the hand surgeon who didn't really know whether or not it would work. how exactly you were saying you could have been in the wheelchair still,
You've been
right?
Yeah,
All
yourself.
this
yeah.
time.
I don't think I'd ever walked again.
Yeah,
So if there's anything I could say to anyone else is that
yeah,
you have to find it within yourself to be your own best advocate. There's
yeah,
there's just no one out there that can advocate for you like you can advocate. And yeah, you're going to have to do some things that are not
Yeah.
comfortable. You're going to have to go outside of your comfort zone to find people or ask questions or explore options that maybe are just so unfamiliar to you. But if you don't do it for yourself, who is?
It really feels strange though to call a doctor right directly, right? You think that your doctor will refer you right to the right person and things like that.
No,
Oh,
I had zero faith in my rehab doctor here in Roanoke. I sized her up pretty quickly and just thought, you just, you
my
are not good enough for me. You are not good enough for me.
My,
I'm going elsewhere.
and you have the right to do that. I was in rehab at our local hospital here, and they had me hopping on one leg, and you'd go 10 feet on your one leg hopping, and they'd say, "Oh, you're doing so well," and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think so. I don't think this is the way it's supposed to be. And I ended up checking myself out of there, Sarah, and I said, I'm done. I think this place is a waste of time. And I
Mm,
got out of there. And that's when
good for you.
I had to pick up the phone myself. I did some research. Who's the best one in Toronto? I found that person. I phoned her, Dr. Mayo at in Toronto, Sunnybrook. And I hounded her and hounded her. I have to talk to you. I have to talk to her. She's busy. She can't take a call. She can't. Finally, she just said, "Give me a, I'll take the call." And she said, "Come and see me on Monday." And she had me in there, within a week. And you've got to do that. You got to advocate for yourself and make sure that you're looking after yourself. So,
You absolutely have to. I mean, no one else is going to. And if you don't have the drive in yourself to get better or to get to some new normal for yourself,
yeah.
um, God bless you. I was not going to sit in a wheelchair the rest of my life. Absolutely not.
Hey, the other
Um,
thing you mentioned to me about your healing is that it's shocked you a little bit or surprised you that your family, how much support you had in your family, but also your community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
hmm,
yeah, so I didn't grow up in this town, but I've lived here about 30 years and worked here and, had a lot of connections. And so a couple of things happened that really worked in my favor. One, my husband has a sister who's a physician, not in Virginia. She's in Colorado, but she's smart, whiz smart.
Mhm.
And so she wasn't here. She came for a few days, but she took up the mantle of my Caring Bridge account. And so most of what's written there is her writing about what she's gathering about what's happening with me, not my own writing. That's her. So that was helpful to people who, far and wide knew what was going on, but wanted daily updates. And of course, there was no way my husband could talk on the phone to people, in the community or family that lived far away, or friends that lived far away, high school friends, college friends. They all learned about this and wanted updates. And so it was my sister-in-law that kept that Caring Bridge up. And then other people, I have no idea who really to this day, possibly a nephew, started a GoFundMe account. And I really didn't even know anything about that for the first month. Um, Maybe not even until I was released from the hospital and somebody, I think my nephew called and said, okay, well, we've been doing a GoFundMe for you and this is how much money's in it. And I was like,
Big heart. Wow.
shocked,
wow.
shocked, but so helpful because when I found out that, I was going to have to go to Washington and have this surgery, well, that helped pay for those trips to go up, stay in a hotel, and, go
Yeah.
back and forth to the hospital, helped to cover that expense very much. And then later down the road, so I recover from my surgery, great. We go to Florida for the winter. I go back to I've had one encounter with a prosthetic clinic and one prosthetist in Roanoke. After my surgery, of course, after you have surgery, you get refitted. So then I started out with a hanger clinic in Sarasota, Florida. I had a nice prosthetist there. I did get prosthetics and I actually learned to walk that winter of 22. So this is, 2+ years since my illness. I
Yeah.
did learn to walk with some prosthetics. And so I came home from Florida, continued therapy, and I could walk pretty well. I could wear them long stretches of time, and I was doing pretty well with that. But I hated those prosthetics with this big, thick sleeve
Mm.
that went up my leg because when I took myself over to my gym and I wanted to walk a mile around the track, well, that sleeve just slid down like a soggy diaper,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
and then I was at risk of them falling off. And it's just like, this system is not going to work for me.
Right.
So I go back to a hanger clinic in Roanoke, which had just been, they had bought out another prosthetic company. So this is my third prosthetic business. I go back to them and say, well, I can walk in these. I can walk now. I've done well with balance and I practiced a lot, but I don't like this system with this sleeve. I said, I can't have this. What else do you have for me? And they didn't offer me anything else. And since
Oh,
then, I've known people that have suction systems and, you know,
and
other ways of attaching the prosthetic to your limb other than that thick, cumbersome, hot, slippery sleeve. And they said, no, we don't have any other system that we think would work for you. And I was just like, what?
yeah.
So I was not happy
Yeah.
about that. And about this time, a little earlier than this time in 23, I saw a Time magazine article about Martin Bionics. Do you all know about Martin
Aren't
Bionics?
bionics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard of it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so a very different approach to a prosthetic limb.
Yeah.
And I tore out that page and called them up, and it's like, okay, where can I go to get this?
Yeah.
This looks like something that would work better for me. I am active. I can't do this sleeve stuff. This
Yeah.
is not going to work for me.
Mhm.
So it turns out Martin Bionics, based in Oklahoma City, of course, but has a clinic in Tampa. Well,
Mm.
that's where my son lives.
No, that's perfect. Back to
Oh,
Florida.
So the rest of the GoFundMe money paid for us to go to Tampa and stay for about 8 days and get the Martin Bionics prosthetics in 23. And that was the game changer for me.
Yeah.
wow.
Mhm.
Your amputation, how far up is it? Is it
Oh, I'm below the knee, so I have.
yeah.
Okay, if you really want to see the down and dirty view, I'm sitting here with no prosthetic on. So I've got
Yeah.
probably
Okay.
7 inches below my kneecap on both legs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
Got it.
there's something to hang on to.
There's
Mhm.
I've heard lots of great things about them, and there's also what they call osseointegration, where
Yep,
patch
I
of
did my homework on that. I
yeah,
just felt like that was a lifelong commitment to
commitment.
wound care, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to go for
That's
that.
what I thought. If it doesn't work, like how do you back out of it? Because they've attached it to your bone, like it becomes
Yeah.
right.
How would
Yeah.
you undo that if it didn't work?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Because
thought the
you're at
potential.
high risk of infection inside and everything too, right? Then you're dealing
I
with
think
something
one
else.
round with sepsis is all I'm going to handle in this
Yeah.
life. I told my husband, if I get sepsis again, don't do anything. Just let me go. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that again. So that did not sound like an option for me. So I
Yeah.
go down there and I get fitted for my Martin Bionics prosthetics, and I just took off from there.
Good.
So could walk much better. Now my daily workout is a 2-mile walk on the track, then I
Wow.
do some stretching, and then I swim with the
Oh,
shin
good.
fins. If you haven't looked at shin fins, they are another game changer out of Australia. This guy just kind of randomly invented this new kind of swim fin, and it fits wonderfully over an amputated limb.
Oh,
And
Amazing. So you're living the life now.
yeah,
I'd like to learn where you more about that because I have a pool in the backyard and I haven't swam in 3 years, almost.
Oh, you've got to get these,
Yeah.
Kevin. They're
Yeah.
just a cheap piece of molded plastic, like the shape of a fin. And then he uses these rubber straps that you can just slide them on over your limb,
Right.
tighten them up so that they won't fall off. And they
Yeah.
are amazing. Amazing. I was a backstroker, so now I swim about a mile of backstroke about 5 days a week.
Great
Do you think you
exercise.
swim even faster now?
No, I wouldn't say I swim fast,
Okay. With the
but
fins?
I do pretty good. I do pretty good. So.
I'm
Amazing.
working on an
Good.
invention. It's a propeller that you tie. No, I'm joking.
No, they're just, it's a simple concept. It's just instead of the typical kind of swim fins that you would step into with your foot, these actually, for a normal person, they would slide up to be behind your ankle, and then one part of it would be under your arch. And
Right.
that's how the developer, the inventor wears them. There's a photo of him wearing them on his website.
Yeah.
But for an amputee, you just pull them on to your limb below the knee. I don't know they would work for anybody that except a below the knee amputee. I just pull them on and make sure they're tight enough not to come off. And I found that the hard plastic was a little uncomfortable, so I just put on my prosthetic socks, which I had left over from my first iteration of prosthetics.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
just put on a couple of pairs of socks underneath the plastic thin, pull it on, and off I go. And it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Wow.
Hey, can I ask you another question? Um,
Yeah.
did you ever swim without those? And if you did, I'm worried about sinking to the bottom of the pool, to be
So,
honest.
oh, the other tool that I have, Kevin, is a buoyancy belt, which you can buy off Amazon or
Oh,
any of these swimming sites. And it's just molded foam and a belt. And so I do always put that around my waist, tighten it up pretty good, because, I don't have the control over my lower body with no feet. So the buoyancy belt and the shin fins, and I am good to go.
well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And another angel is that my brother had a friend who was a physical therapist, and I really wanted to get back in the pool. This was before I heard of the fins or anything. And so we bought the buoyancy belt, and I drove about 2 hours out of town to see her, and she took me to a local Y. We got in the therapy pool where the water was warmer. And the first time I got in a pool, I had to use the lift chair, and I'm standing in a pool with this belt on, keeping me afloat without my feet. It was just the weirdest thing,
Yeah,
just the weirdest thing. But she's like, okay, let's see if you can float. Let's see if you can do backstroke. And I didn't have the flippers then or the fins, but yeah, I could swim. Now it was pretty
yeah,
slow, but the belt would keep me floating enough that I could kick what legs I had and do my backstroke, and I could go up and down the pool.
yeah. Good. That's good. I'm going to pick one of those up.
You have to order them from Australia.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, the fins you do. No, you can get a buoyancy belt anywhere.
yeah,
Um, yeah, mine is I don't even know the name of it. It's just blue and has a black belt. It's adjustable, but it was a good $60 investment for sure.
yeah. Hey, I'll shift gears a little bit and go back to something you said. If you recall, you were talking about how difficult it was to accept it in the beginning. And, there's a physical component, there's an emotional component to this. There's also a mental component. And,
Mhm.
people don't talk about this enough, in my opinion. How are you doing today mentally? Like from a mental perspective, have you learned how to accept this and does it bother you or and I'll just add to that. My amputation was almost a year ago and still today I look at people and I look at them and they're walking by and I'm like, almost upset that I can't do that. You know what I mean? And I play in my
I
head,
do know what you mean.
yeah,
And I think that I'm almost 6 years out from my amputations, so I've had a longer period of time to come to learn to live with this. Do
okay,
I like it? No, I don't like it a bit. But what I have learned is that I'm a lot tougher than I gave myself credit for. And there's a lot of things that I don't want to miss out on, and they require walking or standing. And so I was really motivated to regain mobility because there's just things I didn't want to miss out on. And one of the biggest was I only have one child. So he got engaged in 21,
Oh,
when I'm still just trying to walk. And so right off the bat, it's like, I'm going to dance with him at his wedding. You
yeah,
bet I'm going to dance with him.
Ooh.
And
yeah,
here I am dancing with him at
yeah.
his
Oh,
wedding
beautiful.
Oh, that's a,
in my modern
Beautiful.
bionics
yeah,
prosthetics. And so by the time I got married in October of 23, I was doing very well with my Martin Bionics prosthetics, and it was no big deal to be on my feet and dance with him and be at the wedding and all of that. And so having goals like that has really helped. Things that I want to do. Another goal was travel. I didn't see myself being stuck in the basement the rest of my life in my house. And so probably in 21, when I had the not so great prosthetics, we went on a trip. My husband and I, we got a portable wheelchair. Can't take this big one on a plane. Got a portable wheelchair. We got on a plane. We flew up to Michigan to attend a wedding, and then we went up to um, Mackinac Island to the Grand Hotel. And yeah, it was a pain in the butt from our previous method of travel with me
yeah,
being healthy and fit and strong enough to carry my own suitcase and manage myself. And now I've got to be either in the wheelchair or pushing the wheelchair, and he has to manage everything else. But we did it.
yeah.
And that was a big deal to
I
go
almost,
somewhere.
I almost feel, Sarah, that there's a whole episode on that alone, just
Yeah, on travel.
how to do
I
it.
think that would be a great
100%.
idea
We should,
because not only do you learn some suggestions, but you pick up information about traveling in general that every amputee should know. And
absolutely.
that
Hmm.
maybe it would motivate some people that are interested to try it. It's a little terrifying. Yes, it's a little terrifying.
Yeah,
You come home from the hospital with limb loss, and you get your house, your living situation fixed up so that you function well at home. And then the idea of taking that show on the road is, yeah, it's a little terrifying,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it can be done. And to
yeah,
get out of your own house and to go somewhere new is a really good thing for your mental health
yeah.
because
Yeah, 100%.
And when
you
you travel,
feel like a normal person. I can go on a plane too. I can go to places too. And I think that's helped a lot with me
Hmm.
feeling better about being an amputee. Another thing that helps me the most, which both of you have the chance to do already, is speaking to other people
yeah,
about this experience and hoping that something I have experienced can help someone else
I was going to get
gives
into
me,
that, is around advocacy, right? Like, you are a big advocate now and you like to do the advocacy work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
yeah. So once I realized that my rehab doctor was not going to give me information about best outcomes, it sort of empowered me. It's like, I'm in charge now.
Yeah,
I'm in charge. No one else is in charge. I'm in charge with my husband's support.
yeah,
So my first effort at advocacy is we went to stay in Sarasota, Florida for a couple of months in the winter of 21 or 22, I guess. And we found a nice gym to go to because we're both fitness people. And I needed an indoor pool. Well, I needed an indoor pool that had a lift chair because I can't walk into the pool. And they had a therapy pool with a lift chair, but had this lovely lap pool, but no lift chair. So that winter, I did laps in the 90-degree therapy pool, which is not good at
right.
all. And I was not happy about that. So when I left, I spoke to the manager and I was like, why don't you have a lift chair at the lap pool? And he, blah, 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 don't know. So I came home, I did my homework on the ADA website. I spoke to someone at the ADA and said, are they supposed to? They're a place that's not private, it's not like a country club. This is open to the public. Anybody can pay money and go here.
Yeah.
Aren't they required to have the everything that's accessible, everything that's available to any other member is supposed to be available to me, right? Right. So I found that out, and I also dig a little further and looked at the ADA website and thought, okay, what if I file a complaint? What happens? And I followed that on the website and found out if you file a complaint, almost 100% of the time, your complaint just becomes a lawsuit.
Oh, is that
I know
right?
that.
Wow.
Oh, most of the time, yeah. So I called the fellow who was in charge of this facility, and I was like, Jim, look, you need a chair at the pool. You need a lift chair at the lap pool because you're not private. I'm able to come there, pay my money. I should have access to swim laps in the lap pool, and you don't have a chair. And he said, yeah, we used to have this chair that served both pools, and when we took that out, we put the new chair in at the therapy pool. We just never put one in at the lap pool. And I was like, well, you need one.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I think we do. Let me check with somebody else. And before we finished the call, I said to him, Jim, I just want to swim. I don't want to cause you problems, but I'm going to tell you this is that if I file a complaint with the ADA, it most likely will be a lawsuit. And I don't really want a lawsuit. I just want a chair.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're right. We don't want a lawsuit either. He called me back and he said, you're right. We are not in compliance. And when you come back, he said, we'll get a chair.
Yeah.
Well, this was in the summer. So we go back there in December and we go down there to sign up and join. And I was like, where's my chair? And it was being installed that day. So
Oh,
they didn't rush out and get a chair, but
coming.
by gosh,
Gotta get
before
this
City
in.
Hall got there was a chair. So I feel like that was a big victory for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I just said, I hope other people can use this. And I did meet another amputee, a fellow who was in a Black Hawk helicopter accident, and he was using the chair too. And that made me feel better. But the other thing that I have really enjoyed doing is someone I know who teaches physical therapy at the community college asked me if I would come and speak to her physical therapy students about my amputation experience. And I was like, heck yes, I will do that.
Yeah.
So I put on my prosthetics and I go in there and I just give them a quick and dirty of my surgery. And then I talked a lot about therapy and what I thought was most helpful to me from my physical therapy experiences with multiple therapists therapist and what was not so helpful. And, some tips I would have for them of young people that are studying therapy. If you have patients like me, that this is what we're worried about, and this is how you can help me the most. So I enjoyed doing that a lot too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I talked to somebody else doing something similar. They travel a lot, and one of the airlines is designing a new plane. And so she's now involved in this project where she's talking to them about accessibility and what is it that's so hard about traveling on a plane? Well, the washroom's not big enough. The aisles aren't wide enough. The seats aren't wide enough. All these different things. Where do I put my
Mhm.
prosthetic when I'm traveling. If I take
Yes,
those
yes,
those
yes.
kind of types of
I,
projects,
I just had a
like getting
I had a
involved.
phone call today
Yeah,
from I went into a restaurant last week that was in Blacksburg, where Virginia Tech is, big US university.
yeah,
And there was no cut on the sidewalk. So it was really hard for me to step up on the sidewalk. There was no railing or anything to hold on
okay,
to. And it was a pretty sizable step up. So I quickly came home, wrote an email to the town, and I got a call back from him. And he was telling me, like, oh, well, there's accessible parking in the back. And I was like, with all due respect, so this is America. We have the ADA law. I don't have to go in the back door.
right,
I want to get out of my car and walk in the front door of this restaurant like everyone else.
right,
And
Hmm.
I'm entitled to that
right.
in America. And I think you need to make it possible for me to get out of my car in front of this restaurant in your city and walk in the front door.
Yeah.
So we'll
Oh,
see where that goes.
so
So
you'll see what that's your next fight. That's wonderful. Well, listen, I could talk to you all day long, and I've really enjoyed this session. Is there anything, Yasmin, you want to ask before we go? And
No, I think I asked the main questions, and Sarah, you were able to elaborate on those main points. But yeah, like Kevin said, I could talk to you all day
yeah,
because your story is very interesting.
maybe
Well,
we'll
I'm
do
happy
that.
to talk to anybody. And if you find that, Kevin, if someone particularly is interested in, revision surgery or something that I've experienced that they might be facing, just let me know and I can reach out to someone. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful. That's really wonderful. One thing that we're going to be looking for, in our limb loss connection is advocates like yourself, but also, mentors to be able to help other people, get through this process, right? You're 6 years
Yeah,
into it, but you remember,
yeah.
like day one, you remember what it was like.
I'd be happy to be a mentor. I
Yeah,
also had an interesting experience after I was successful flying in a plane up to Michigan. We then embarked upon the idea that I could go on a cruise to
yeah,
Europe,
yeah.
and I did that last year. Yeah, and
Wow.
had a lot of conversations uh,
And
with Norwegian Cruise Lines. But let me tell you what, Norwegian just put two new ships in the water last year in August. Then they have accessible cabins to die for.
Wow.
Gigantic, twice as big as what
really,
my able-bodied sister was in. Oh, it was a king suite,
oh,
huge room, king size bed, perfectly appointed bathroom. I had 370 square feet, and my able-bodied family members had 195 square feet.
real advantages to what
So,
you're
what?
going through.
They
Well,
did it
this was
right.
they did it right. And I've talked to them again because it was so perfect for me and said, why aren't all your ships like this? This was really great. I've tried to give them some verbal feedback that this is for the way things need to be. Not that every cabin
Mhm.
has to be like this, but if you are handicapped or mobility challenged, this was perfect. You got this right. Do this
Yeah,
on all your ships.
oh, that's
So
pretty.
anyway, I we went on a Greek island cruise, and not every excursion was I successful at. And one in Santorini, Greece, which is like this straight up. I couldn't go all the way to the top, and so our tour guide parked us at a gelato shop where we struck up a conversation with a Canadian couple.
Oh, okay.
And we ended up talking about the differences between the ADA in the States and whatever legislation Canada has, if they have any. And she's like, oh, Canada's even a better job than the United States. And I'm like, oh, well, then maybe I'll have to travel into Canada if I can find accommodations easily. But we did have that conversation in Santorini, Greece about Canada's ADA.
Yeah. Well, if you ever get a chance to come to Toronto, look us up and let us know your.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, listen, I think we should wrap things up. It's been a wonderful session. I'd love to do another session down the road with you,
Sure.
Sarah. Um, but I appreciate your time today and really
Yeah.
interesting story. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Sarah.